welcome to Process School meeting. We are finally in the zone. Over the weekend, what we learned is that I need to share you the teamwork task, just in case that if you want to be here, submit your thing, because I'm not able to add everybody on the teamwork task. VDI gives me the names, but if you're new and never been on a teamwork task, I may not be able to add you on teamwork task. And then that has been a bummer, because finding that specific person and getting involved isn't easy sometimes. Well, a few fallback. Last time we looked at the task processes. We have been going through the task process now for several weeks. So this time I'm going to skip explaining the whiteboard and how it works. We took some few tasks. We have new tasks today too. And we went over what are new of them. And then we took one task from the top and kind of lined where it goes, what it fits to, and organized that task to be fulfilled. And then we looked at the big scope of process build and see where are we lacking, where are we are progressing, and what are the most important aspects of iterating on our process build sessions. Today, my call would be to go deeper into the task items, and hopefully in town hall you already mentioned, but I'm going to also mention here that process build will spit out two new work groups this week. One is called process modeling work group, and another one is PBL work group. So the times are established on Thursday, 13 UTC and 40 UTC. Same Zoom call, and we're going to have basically 2 hours of meetings. One where we plan onboarding for teamwork, make educational material, and also experiment the double-sided, or how to say, like 2 different groups rewarding same activities. So double funds in PBL side. And on process modeling, we basically start looking into process automation, ambassador onboarding process mapping, and Myroboard task management tool as a tool. So this way we save this process build time in a bit of higher level of thinking what different builds are doing, different work groups are doing, and trying to align ourselves on the most important agenda items which are related to processes. So 2 things that I will say that are coming up and should be also discussed, other than the 2 new work groups I mentioned, is archival work group. So previously we had academic research work group, but Stefan mentioned that first, in order to probably establish that, it would be nice if we gather a bit of more information of our existing data, the things we are doing, and leverage some tools and models to use our data, and from that start thinking academic ways how do we kind of model ourselves. And then under that archival work group, there is ongoing PDF conversion and archival for each meeting. And today we had a small discussion with Steven about that, and he has now the access to do the conversions and move them also to part of our archival work group. Then from the existing work we have been now putting aside from weeks ago, what I wanted to do is to take one of these, where basically we also already prioritize them. So let's see if we are able to do 3 of these and start writing and brainstorming. It's lagging and brainstorming task requirements. So each of these are tasks and title of tasks, and but we may need context on this. So let's do one together and see if you're able to do then the second two with the brainstorming. So we have a task, create task process for writers work group and governance framework. Actually, it should be one thing. Let me see what is that. Writers work group governance. Okay, so it's not really. Okay, so it's a proposal. How do you create the process for writers work group? And there is already a document aligned here too. And if we now want the process, what should be the output in order to say that this task is completed?
I just wanted to ask, can you be a bit more, like maybe a bit clearer about what you asked? Sorry, can you come again?
Well, we have an agenda item, create task process for writers work group. And I think it came related to when we did this translation process mapping. So I'm going a bit of back in time to see if I can find the Miro board. Not this, but we have it on this Miro board too. So for the translation process, for the translation work group, we have this kind of Miro board. This is perhaps outdated, but what it does is it shows like what kind of T-work tasks this program has, what are the steps and what kind of activities people do, what are the different roles based on the colors, and how the task moves on the lanes, like to do, in progress, in review, in done. And then we were at the time where we like thinking, okay, what other work groups we need, and one of them came out from marketing guild called writers work group. And then we had these people basically came up with their own proposals. So one of this is this one, spirit and philosophy, talking about different roles, expectations, some roles under that program, and I can see some requirements in order to be part of writers work group. Now, is this task completed, or do we want to have a similar process describing that too, or something else? Like, is there anything you want us to kind of provide to you? Alternatively, if this feels like already that no, we shouldn't work on that, we don't need a process for another work group, and throughout this chaotic time where we worked on different things and seeing how different work groups were coming up, we already learned that, oh, maybe we don't need to detailed process how to manage a work group. And the way you're running it already is manageable, understandable, and we don't have to focus that. This way we can basically cancel the task and we can move on to video work group structure. Then the same thing there. Do we need some processes there? If not, we can cancel it, move to the next one. Do we need meta standards? So we're basically, if we don't come up with task requirements, we don't have to do that, because this is all the work we're basically building ourselves, and maybe we're moved past on, but we still would want to come back and learn that when we do cancel, we just don't need that anymore, or we don't need it right now, then we have that kind of consensus that we remove it from backlog.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks for that. I think you know, the governance structure itself has become quite more refined. we've adjusted a couple of things, and I should make that clear in the document. Probably I'll create a different version, or like maybe just make a copy, of this document, and try to give you the latest document. Like this document it has changed. We've discussed it over and over. It has changed, and also I think it would be quite better if we have a visual outlook, or a visual representation of how what it takes to move from a pupil or someone that is interested in being a part of the work group and actually contributing in the work group, as well as the payment structure and how the task workflow goes on. Because I recently created a writers forum, which I feel it would be a very good way to discuss potential article suggestions, actually titled article suggestions. But I think only scribblers can see it. Might have to edit that. I'll be bringing it up in our call this week, and how to use it. So it's just a forum like the SNET discussion forum we have. So basically, just give us your article suggestion and kind of like a bit of a proposal on the article, and then everybody gets like put ideas together, and all in the looking forward to actually getting that person's article to go out. And it's all about combination of collaboration. So yeah, there are a lot of updates to share, but I think the one thing the work group needs right now is uh, uh, a Medium account, from probably one, or should be one, with the SingularityNet Gmail. So that way, there's a bit of energy there, or synergy going on there. So we need the Medium account, and I said it on the town hall. I feel it's better to say it here. I was thinking we could enable publication, like create a publication. I think I just confirmed that it doesn't require any payment. So after setting up the account, I feel we should have a publication and edit our page in such a way that we can add scribblers to be a part of this publication, and whatever they write gets to go on our ambassador program page. I feel like in the spirit of decentralization and collaboration, I feel that that's a very good way to go. So that way, scribblers and eventually even ambassadors that can write pieces that go onto the Singularity Ambassador Program page, and as also to the Singularity Ambassador Program, we'll be putting out original pieces, which would actually stem from collaboration from everybody within the writers work group at large, trying to like get probably a huge piece out on the ecosystem, probably for our monthly updates, our recaps, Twitter Spaces, and all.
Yeah, there is a lot of context to go, and thank you for that. So there is need of a visual representation, as I understood, and I would also put the finger on the Medium account, and I'm a bit confused why we need both SingularityNet forum account. If that is capable, everybody is already able to post it there. And why do we need a Medium account? Or is that the Medium account is like more accessible for users? And if that's so, why using a SingularityNet forum? Or it is expected to use both because of the ability to kind of translate it into forum and doing it the same way as original articles are being done by SingularityNet.
On that note, yes, I feel the forum provides a lot on the translations front. But I feel like for more direct information and updates from the ecosystem, and for more fluid context, I feel the Medium account is a go-to for people to to redirect people from our Twitter page to our Medium account, so they can get like a short version of the story and then the big broad version of the story, and it's easier and more friendly, reader friendly for all people. People are more used to Medium than they are to forum, and then I guess from the Medium account and from our Medium post, we can redirect them to the forum for a broader sense of everything going on within the ecosystem at large, I guess.
Okay. And Stephen, you had your hand up. Was it related to?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, echoing Kenishi's points about, I mean, for me, just as an observation, really, surely the emphasis here should be on what a work group does and how do I contribute. Okay, so I would avoid going into too much detail here, maybe, Thibaut. Like if you're questioning individual applications that people are using, I would suggest that might be too much detail. What we need is consistency across on, I like to think of it in terms like the user journey. Okay. So they come in, there's these marketing guilds, there's this process guild, there's, what does it do? Okay. How does it do it? How do I contribute? Okay. That's really,
Yeah, I think this can be fine from the document, and from the learning what I got from here is basically a similar onboarding process and one example of providing new submissions, and processing that out is already quite good, because then Kenichi and their work group can take it further by adding alternative work and ideas they want to incorporate into process, and like the details of what is the content and how to and the onboarding for different content like certification is up to the groups themselves. If there are, so regarding Medium account, currently right now we have a bunch of ambassadors in this call. A few days ago I posted in ambassadors only chat a poll, which only Felix mentioned that yes, we provide passwords beyond our ambassador pool members. Would be cool that if more people add the voter, so I'm gonna reply and ping ambassadors in the Discord and in future vote on question, and then you can check in Discord in future, and we get this addressed. And if there is no blockers for me to send passwords beyond ambassador program and give Kenichi the access to use ambassadors email account for Medium, then we all good there. And for the process itself, we going to move back it into this backlog, and in the upcoming process modeling workshops, we may take it up as we go. For the next item, we look at the video workgroup structure. Do we have somebody here who wants to go through the same process of describing the requirements of what would this team expect from process guild or from ambassadors, or can we sideline it or we repeat?
So far I think we have a clear process on how to go about things. I don't know if it would need more. I definitely encourage everyone. I don't know if it's the right time to go through the document, but that's something I've been suggesting, is that for people to look at the document and then I don't know, write some comments and edit some things out and stuff like that, just to perhaps fill in some gaps that I might have missed on all these things.
Okay, audit document can be something we do asynchronously, and so I would say one document takes average an hour to read through. So what everybody thinks of a task to basically read through a document and provide a comment for the document through dwork task. So in the dwork task, we only basically say that you have audited the document and the reward is one 1 hour, so basically a $10 budget. Would that be sufficient? Then we get incentivized feedback for this document. We don't do any processes other than that. And once it's done, let's say we give 2 weeks for that, we are completed with this task.
That's fair.
I'm gonna leave it purple and to make sure that we can create an audit document then. And final main requirement is create meta standard for onboarding process in modules. So we have Tommy here and Grandano. From incubation and strategy guild, how much you have been dabbling into the onboarding process? Because I see a bunch of people joining in. These discussions kind of seep in different discussions. Has been there some changes of requirements? Or
Yeah, it's been seen like recognized as a focus needed there. And just what was it today? We had the onboarding session.
It started. The backlog has broken, and Sukrin has stepped up to the plate, and she started this onboarding meeting. And I think today's meeting was fantastic. And I see she's in the room, so I'm not going to speak for Sukrin Spice. I was just very happy to see that it's been taken up because I think it's a high priority, but that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, she might be at work right now, but yeah, if somebody can find that document to share, we just went over the document that she had created.
It's there, right?
It's in there now.
It's in my room.
Oh, cool, nice.
something is dropping here.
And we're talking about things like if there should be a test involved, if there should be various levels, like maybe like a simple way from a person to get involved if they do a test or something. They'd get like level 1 or whatever the next role is to where they could have access to a chat that's not accessible just to anybody that normally goes to the Discord. Just some sort of like simple layer.
What are the next steps in here? What are to test out?
Well, we did have one active test already. To have a pre-town hall kind of session of 30 minutes where potential new members can, introduce themselves, have a little chit chat, and or ask questions, like introductory session. However, today, and we pushed this very short notice. Today it was I think Fly, Grandano, and Rojo and me. So not a lot of new members there.
It was a
What's that?
party.
Yeah, we talked about connecting onboarding with you in process because we had kind of discussed onboarding at one point. We had a layout. And yeah, there's a couple different pieces to connect. Like
Could we
Alex.
then continue using that material you provided and still try to retrofit into the motherboard and see if you're able to have a different visualization on that? Or you think that the current version is already good enough to basically do the onboarding?
I think this was based on the workshop today was like Sukrin leading this ideation like with some reflections on the previous document, the determined steps of onboarding. And it was kind of outlined that there are changes that need to be made, like during with the onboarding form, people fill out information basically 3 times, and that there needs to be kind of aggregation of that and yeah, streamlining of it. And for instance, the ecosystem overview, which is step 4, is less detailed information than the ecosystem overview in the onboarding form, which is like a huge article document. So this information needs to be a bit refitted so it's more ergonomic, shall we say.
Okay, and from the chat, Steven mentioned perhaps start with the simple baseline processes, get on with the work, only go back to process when absolutely necessary. Others, it feels like a process engineering for its own sake.
Yeah, to qualify that, I mean, I don't know. It's just to remind ourselves here of, like onboarding, okay? And I heard Fly talking about keeping things simple, okay? Because what do people want when they come into the ecosystem? They don't know much. They don't want to be bombarded with information. They want to know what they can do, where to go, okay? Now, from our perspective, we don't need to design a complicated process for that. We need to design a process that's as simple as possible. And we want to avoid duplication of effort. So, where will they go first? And I suppose on our Discord, we have start here, that kind of thing, so that's where we should probably start. And then there's also supporting materials like any documentary materials, like Fly was referring to, a reference to a long article in the form, which is probably not the sort of thing you want to do for a new person, So it's not so much process engineering for its own sake, Thibaut. It's more start with simple processes, okay, and get those working, okay, and don't make any other processes until they're working. That's what I'm sort of saying.
We also had some pretty good conversations about having a regular, either beginning month, end of month meeting in either town hall or funding town hall or something, where new onboardees can come in and we can talk and welcome them and feed them some, information in a different format than just written. There was some discussion on how often, and there was also concern about gatekeeping. So just some of the notes that I had written down.
Nice. And like today, actually, the process guild took on a new meaning, like in my mind, a new dimension of it, not just like looking at the process, but processing what's going on in the program. And as we scale, I see the role in process as today is like so beautiful, how we're kind of visualizing different parts of different tasks, these backlogs between different guilds and work groups. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, and this is something I've been trying to kind of forward, because when we zoom out, what we see is that we're always gonna get more and more things to do. And this is why this like aggregation list is coming to handy to kind of understand which each work group and guilds are working on and kind of aligning on. And then what we can do as a guild, we can just create new work groups, new workshops to support the previous ones. And this is somehow we kind of start intermingle together. And yeah, I hope that the process can be something where we bring our worries and the most immediate activities, high-level activities in one place. Well, we did now go through the exercise of providing task requirements to provide a bit more information for the tasks we have up here. For the next meeting, I will allow them in the better format, like more clickable, and then follow up with these other purple stickies that opened up and see where do we get on that by the next week. One main item also I wanted to get over in this process call meeting was about meeting summaries for each participation task. So recently we implemented read.ai. So what that tool is going to do is that it's going to do summaries, action items, and some main questions. It gives a good list. And from that would be nice that each guild, each work group who are having meetings start creating summaries based on either the read.ai results or your own version of what decisions were made in your call, what did you learn in the call, if anything, and what was this meeting about in 1-2 sentences. And technically, all these questions could be addressed in 1-2 sentences, and so that we get like a 3 to 4, 3 to 6, 7, like a paragraph that we can later copy paste into Gitbook, and then we can leverage AI to learn about different topics of different workshops and like the main lessons points. What everybody thinks about that, because if we turn this into standard, it's a slight overhead to everybody, and all the facilitators now have to think about writing summaries. In case of marketing guild, I can see that it's a very non-issue because Grandana is dropping high, very quality summaries already. But for me and process guild and treasury guild, it will add a bit of extra minutes on my activities, but I'm willing to do that. How about Kenichi, Rojo, and Strategy guilds are different guilds who are perhaps not yet writing summaries for each meeting they have.
Tommy, you were mentioning something about, and I don't want to preempt what you were going to say because you were talking about presenting something in a day or two on standard structures for meetings, I think what Thibaut is talking about here is just what the minimum information we need to record about each meeting should be. But be interesting to hear your perspective as well.
Yeah, I have notes in the past about that minimum, and I think it was, who was hosting, what the meeting was about, what the agenda items were, and about how long it was. I think I don't want to go back in my notes right now. What I was talking about is in part that, but also I have noted, and this isn't really meant to be criticism for anybody, but we get into meetings and we get distracted and we go off on tangents and topics, and stuff isn't necessarily getting accomplished according to the host's agenda. So I want to have, I'm going to take 15 minutes tomorrow, and I'm just going to briefly go over how centralized corporate IRL would organize say a staff meeting or any type of meeting with a goal, an agenda, how long it's going to run, things like that. And that's simply that. The document you're referring to is what, and I think you may have brought it up, Stephen, was what we need to document a meeting on what was accomplished, what was done and accomplished.
That's great. I'll leave that with you. I just knew that you're already talking about it, so that's a good thing. So I'll let you speak for that when you.
Okay, tomorrow. Thank you.
So then what we hear is that from different places, the same discussion may arise, standardizing meetings, and would, if we kind of agree to start doing summaries now, and based on our previous kind of ruling, we would implement that in 2 weeks, and the way enforcing would look like is, because Treasury Guild, me, Myra, or Andre, or Felix are mainly exporting the tasks out from D-Work, should we then start looking into all the participation meetings? And if we don't see a meeting summary in a D-Work or as a link to a document or a Miro board or any asset, and if we don't find a meeting summary, do we reject the auditing and writing comments that they be looking for summary?
That may come across as a bit heavy-handed, maybe. I mean, this may be about developing good habits. Like, I know from feedback I've had from people new to the space they come to me, what is this meeting about? Okay, so some sort, don't necessarily have to have an agenda, but you need to start with that. You need to, and I know that Peter does that at town halls. He explains what the Singularity Net is about and what he's going to discuss. That is politeness. Okay, why? Because you don't know who's new, you don't know the level of understanding people have. Okay, if you just go straight into a conversation that you're continuing from a previous meeting, people will feel alienated by that. Okay, so then you need to go on to, then hopefully you need to develop a habit where you're treating one subject at a time. Now, I know this is all very easy to say, but because you often get into a general discussion, but that's why I feel the kind of general rules that we just need, all of us need to get used to, and it is kind of common sense, so hopefully we don't have to be heavy-handed about it and say, oh, you must run a meeting in this way.
No, but I think we can also come with an understanding of honesty and often it needs someone to just say, hey man, I think you've been speaking a bit too long, and then other people agree. And I think to go into these kinds of situations very open, like, hey, we're just trying to make best practices for us all and not to take it like personally. Yeah, I think it's cool to try and in a way challenge each other to try and come up with these best practices. And as much as like politeness is nice, like yeah.
Fly, you're a very good facilitator. Crandano is a very good facilitator. Most of the people in this room, and I haven't looked lately who's in here, are good facilitators, but it's one of the hardest things to do in a virtual world. You're dealing with a global population, different, practices, habits of the countries and stuff. What is polite to one civilization may not be polite for another one. So we tread and we can't see everybody necessarily. So you can't read body language or face language sometimes. So we tread a very careful path when we're facilitating. Yet, in order to be effective, instead of just having meetings, I mean, meetings and meetings get nowhere, but in order to be effective, the facilitator needs to understand the thumb on the scales of time versus effective talking, towards getting done what the facilitator set the meeting at. And
Yeah.
that's why, you know, tomorrow I'll go over the reason for why you should have an agenda, why you should have a goal, which is different than an agenda. And just as TiVo's doing now, a to-do list. So at the end of the meeting, you should come out with actionable items, at least one.
Yeah.
You know, and you're good at that. I applaud you, and I applaud other people. And just, I'll finish this up. I had invited Vanessa in because she had started a facilitators work group in Cardano. And I think it would be eventually, I don't think she's finished with it, or whoever's in it. And Stephen, you might be part of that. But I think it would be a good seminar, so to speak, on how to be a facilitator.
Definitely. E.T., you have your hand up. E.T., you may speak.
Yeah, sorry, there was a bit of audio lag there. Well, to come back, I fully agree to Tommy. And I would be very interested because I don't consider myself as a good facilitator, but I would like to improve there quite a bit. But on the meetings and requiring the summaries, I think if we're introducing that and then a facilitator fucks up, then all the participants don't get their rewards. Like that's not good. That's I don't know. I think we should avoid that. Like it would be a good thing to keep track of.
But wouldn't be it then like Fly said, a challenge for the facilitators and all the participants to kind of poke the facilitator, because in the end, a participant can also take a role of facilitator and say, well, in that meeting, we had this, and maybe even reward that kind of activity.
Well, I don't know. I think initially I would prefer to like have it as a more informal and not tie it directly to rewards. But if it's, yeah, I don't know. In a way, you can still monitor it, right? If it's happening or not. And then sure, it's not. Yeah, there's no stick behind the door, if you can put that in English. I'm not sure. There's no safeguards as such, but I don't know. I would feel really bad about punishing a whole group of people if they don't get somebody to write a summary.
I agree with you, Peter. It's not fair to participants, and it might be heavy-handed. But let me ask you a question. Now that we have in Zoom and we have that AI reader bot, does anybody know if that can summarize a meeting?
It summarizes it. It's hit and miss, Tommy. I've been looking at it regularly. Sometimes it summarizes it very well. Funny enough, if the meeting's very well structured. So if you say, oh, this is what we're talking about now, the AI will pick up on that. What other things that are interesting speaking to, it'll show the percentages of speakers, which is an interesting indication of, in the past, I've looked at governance meetings, I won't mention, and it isn't Singularity now, it's Cardano, and could easily see the share of who was speaking in terms of the amount of time they take up as well. That's not always, there are indicators like that which will tell you, is this meeting being dominated by one voice, or that kind of thing. But that is just a rough guide.
Okay, I just went back in my notes, Stephen. In whatever meeting it was, and I think it was came out of Sandbox, but input, output on our meetings, and the 5-6 topics were meeting name, date, host, the attendees, the agenda, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, and then a meeting summary. That's what facilitators should do, and I'm going to have a document made up. But could the AI be programmed, taught, trained to give those 6 items?
The straight answer is no. I mean, it will help with summaries. It won't completely do a summary. AI is not that advanced. It's because it doesn't understand context that well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it may be um uh too much for a work group lead each time to do notes. So I would suggest that perhaps that could be a task that's one of the other participants can do. If I know I'm not very good at writing and taking notes. Sorry, saying or in dialogue or whilst taking notes. So it's a bit unfortunate that the read AI is a bit hit and miss. But I guess it will get better over time. At least we have that raw info.
Yeah, it would be a really easy task for somebody and all the work groups or guilds if somebody wanted to make a little reward for taking notes.
Yeah. Also, for example, if the facilitator is using slides, a good summary could be based on these slides, given that, of course, the meeting followed the slide. So yeah, you could have the same agenda items and then just give a brief of what happened.
Is that
And yeah,
possible, Stephen? Is that, or is there a um a simpler summary that's needed outside of a slide deck?
I mean, it's going to vary, isn't it? And I think I really hear what you say, Fly, because sometimes it's not. Let's take the AI sandbox meeting. That's not really. That was quite a creative meeting, so it may not have been appropriate to sort of like make it a rigid documentation, but it still can be documented. And I think what Grandano was referring to as well, you could have like you could either reward people who are volunteer for taking notes, but you have to be careful there because of expectations, because all we want to achieve really is discoverability, is to say, okay, this meeting discuss this, and it could be just like a couple of sentences. Yeah. And if you have those couple of sentences, you're adding a lot of value because it means that people can find out what that meeting was about, and they can find out, oh, does that interest me, or that kind of thing. And then they can look deeper into that once they know that. That's why summaries are so valuable.
Nice.
This does bring up a question: in what format and where we collect meeting summaries? So if we are able to, because even if we come to conclusion that, okay, let's start doing summaries, mostly I see some of you are doing in Discord channels. Some would then probably do it in T-Work as a Google Sheet or a Google Doc. I would do that probably in Miro boards. Should we find already a way to aggregate that information to, I don't know, Google Form or something that is easier to integrate in mass to GitHub, or we find a standard other way in Discord channel that everybody puts Discord? Because that would kind of make sense then, because it's our social media. How do we interact? Kind of stay connected.
If we have just a little announcement channel where we just post announcements of these high level summaries of the meetings, that could be a nice place where it's just simply that in a channel.
one thing I would like to ask about is that if the dework task is, let's say, done meticulously, and it does include a summary in the body of the task, isn't that already what we're trying to do? I mean, it does have the date, it has the name, it has the the attendees, and if you include a good summary in there, that should be about it.
Yeah, I think I can see how aggregation in a channel like announcement channel could be useful, but I hate what you're saying, right, Joe? As long as it's summarized somewhere in text, I would say that in text it's easy to extract, it's easier to extract, but there's still the issue of having it in one place, ideally, where you can go and find out what's going on.
Roger, did you mention that if the summaries are in the slide deck themselves or in the meeting notes? So if I would write them in Maroboard and you will do a meeting note in Google Docs, or I mean in the Google Sheets. Oh, yeah, Google Doc, right?
Well, what I was talking about just now was the D-work tasks. We already include so much data about the meetings, and the only thing perhaps that is missing would be like a little summary for the meeting and the agenda items. So would that work?
If you submit it here, then Stephen will have to copy paste it from here, and how he would get to all these D-work tasks would be then manual browsing and basically being up to date on itself. So it can cause a bit of overhead compared to if you might, for example, just do a Google forum where we put in like the title, all that information, and that would be then structured format of all summaries that could be already just by its raw data thrown into AI.
So
easier integrate.
It's a small question. So the body of the body of tasks don't export, I guess, with the if you export some tasks.
Well, now we actually do have an API, but just at the current moment we don't have the tools to get that information out.
Yeah, I can't remember if I don't think the top level body exports does it. I'm not sure, Timo, but yeah, you're right. We are looking at an API access to D-work, but it's still one of the limitations of D-work. It's another reason why we can't really commit to depending on D-work entirely, which is a bit frustrating because you're right, Rojo. That can create a duplication of work. One of the best methods I've seen is just simply posting a summary in your D-work channel, in your Discord channel. Because it's dated, it's easily discoverable, that's in text, and it's been the easiest for me to archive.
I don't even remember how do you see the API calls here. But yeah, regardless, at the current point, we are not there yet. So based on these 4 options, which we prefer to start with? Because it looks like, Stephen, you will have to copy paste the summaries anyway. Would it be easier to have a single channel where we basically announce our meeting updates, or all our different work groups? Or
yeah. My basic approach as the archivist is not to interfere with what's going on. So I don't want to impose a method on people. I just want to document people's documentation. That's the point of the archive. So I don't really want to say, oh, you must do things this way. It's just, but there is a limit, obviously. There's that it needs to be in text. If it's in some formats more than others, it can be harder to find. That is true. But if it's just linked somewhere, I do think also there's the onboarding issue, like from I think Peter's idea of the announcement. I'm not sure if it was Peter's idea, but of the announcements channel, because that's become like a notice board maybe. But that's not just for me from an archiving perspective. That's just where people could go to find out what went on.
Steven, I have a question. How specific the summary needs to be? Because I often find that, for example, the video work group meetings follow the template, well, we have some specific things that we discuss, and that's about it.
Yeah, I think really the reason why we're asking these questions is because we're training an LLM on it. So we're trying to get like, so literally it could be 2 sentences, Rojo. So let's say you had a meeting about producing these sorts of videos, for example, okay? And you might want to name the videos, you might want to say just enough so that people, there's some meaning there. And why do we want that is because the LLM we can then go back through a meeting and say, find this a meeting that tells me about videos on this subject, for example, yeah? And then people will be able to find that meeting and then find that if they're interested, then they can go and find out more detail. Then they can go and look at, you know, the detailed documentation you've done, or they can go and watch the video if they're really interested. So it's about that kind of balance. So the summary, literally, it could be as short as a couple of sentences.
Thank you. That's good.
And main idea right now is to have this in their own dedicated channel on the Discord server, right?
That's an idea, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if people agree with that.
Just because on what you said, because from the Discord side, it's the same, right? At the end of this month, we most likely have the first draft version of our own GPT on Discord, which we can add to specific channels. So if there would be one channel where each work group or guild provides only the reports, there are no answers to anything and whatnot, we really see this as this is just input for which we can take to feed Lens or for Gitbook and the GPT on Discord as well.
Yeah, a good pattern actually would be, I mean, maybe Tommy posted also some basic information in chat, like not all of that is essential. Like, for example, participants you can infer from the recording, but let's say you just had what the meeting was about, who facilitated it, a couple of sentences, and maybe a link to further detail. Like, so if you have like documentation, a mirror board, a video recording, maybe a link, and then Felix is right. You could then have an AI scan that and answer questions on the subjects.
Cool. Let's get set up.
Okay, well, currently the way I understood it, and we take what we learn from this session and start making summaries the way we feel most comfortable with. And there are a bunch of agenda items or like topics you can put into the summary itself, and then let's get our summaries into one channel where we can share it. Those who want can leverage Read AI, and those are able to do it their own can do it. But if you're not really a good one, summary writer, you can also outsource that information as a bounty task to workgroup members. And in the end, we're for now using for our own practicing for that. We are not enforcing any rules. No rewards are going to be stopped based on that. And eventually we'll look to see if we can introduce a facilitators collective to SingularityNet and perhaps have separate work groups going on to give us insights on how to run workshops, how to improve the way we are doing it. And yeah, that's about that topic. So we did cover 2 main stuff, and do we want to go over what are the following decision items from these meetings and what are the following action items? From action items, I could already mention these purple ones, so the new ones. I talked about introducing the facilitators. Another one would be doing a task for an audit document and then finalizing the access to Kenichi and other related workgroup members who may need special access from SingularityNet ambassador. Thank you for joining for the process guild. Today we had a bit more loose agenda items, but I think we covered important aspects which will amplify every work group's work and understanding of how could we do things better and more collaboratively. So see you tomorrow or next week in process guild.
Thanks, Tiva.